What's up? We are back for Bad Boys episode 2, and this episode was whack. Like it was dragged out. The Zeus, I'm gonna get on it, but thumbs up the video, drop the comments down below. This is gonna be a quick one. You already know what to do. Thumbs up the video, subscribe if you have not already, share the video, all that stuff, and let's go. So we get back from the end of last week, which was Rails versus Lou, and it was pretty much the same thing that we saw last week, where it wasn't much more to the fight than what we saw. Like Rails is getting them uppercuts, and that was really it. So then they ended up separating them, and then not carry on, Jonathan and Rails, they ended up like meeting up in between, laughing about it because both of them just got their dubs with whoever they was fighting, Anthony with Jonathan and Rails with Lou. And they laughing about tagging them up and whatever, saying that we ain't trying to do this all season. Like we coming back to kind of enjoy the time and stuff, and we ain't trying to be on that type of time. But they laughing and stuff because they did what they did. Carry On and Mo City ended up joining them, and they start talking about how Rails is uppercutting him and da da da. Mo City talking about he want to see the clips and he can't wait to watch that back. That would be me. I'm the type of person I want to see the fights because if I was on that show, I would be standing by every little bit of drama just so I can watch it. That's it. Like I wouldn't be involved, but I darn sure would be sitting there looking. But next we get Lou in his scenes, and he's been sitting here just popping it the whole time because he just got beat up. And it's always that whenever people get beat up, they ended up just running their mouth and talking about getting their second ones and da da da. And that's basically what he was doing the whole time because he was popping it the whole time and ended up getting beat up because that's what happened. Like Rails was beating him up. And that's a cool thing too, because last season I didn't think Rails could really fight like that. And especially from what I saw, he wasn't fighting, like he really could not fight at all. But he got his one this time. And Rails got not Rails, Lou got it. But they ended up doing all that. Rails hears him talking still about him, and he comes over, and basically they're kind of like popping it at each other, asking for another round, whatever. And they just going back and forth about the whole situation. Rails is saying like it was a miscommunication because Lou was talking about him saying something about his friend or whatever. Just a bunch of nonsense, truth be told. And then they ended up getting to the point where they got to common ground where they shook it out and whatever. That was it. Me personally, I feel like they shook it out because Lou in the moment realized how stupid he looked. Because you flipping out for what? Like this literally had nothing to do with you, and you ended up getting into a fight, and now you got beat up for something that you had something that had nothing to do with you at all. And I feel like in that moment, that's why he shook on it because it's like, okay, at this point, why are we still fighting about it? But that's what happened. The whole time that was happening, Orlando was sitting there laughing, talking about he wants some popcorn. He was entertained. That would be me. But that's basically what it was. They talked it out, and then we move on to the next scene. The next day, they ended up leaving the hotel to go to the house. They ended up getting in their own separate buses. Who else? Rails was there. Not Rails. I'm talking about Raspy. There's too many R's. Raspy, he was sitting there in the car with, who was he in the car with? Mo City, Jonathan, Lou, and Chef Dee. And he was sitting there talking about how he just wants to, like him coming on the show, he just wants to show a different side of him, wants to share some wisdom, and said that he wants to learn and take whatever he can from the show. And I'm like, you on the wrong show. Like he's coming there for the right reason, but you just on the wrong show to do that. But that's pretty much what it was. They was divided up in buses. They talking about like going into the house and whatever. And Rails was talking about how he wanted to call a house meeting because he wants to settle everything with Jonathan, Anthony, and Chef Dee. Mind you, and Anthony's nowhere to be found. Like he's the only one that's not on any of these buses. So we'll get to that later on. But Rails was saying that Chef Dee, as he said before, should have waited his turn to get another one in if he don't sit there and have issues with Anthony and wanted to fight. Like, why are you gonna wait till Jonathan jumps to then jump on him when you already know Jonathan is going to handle it? He's bigger. And then you big too. So it's just like, what's the point in you jumping on that little boy, which is Anthony, when you could have done your own? Like you could have had your own one, but we'll talk about that too, because he disappointed. But that was basically what I was talking about there. Rose was saying that, not Rose, Banga was saying that he does not like Chef D for the shit that he did. And I agree with him. Like out of everybody on this show, Chef D and Lou are the two so far that I don't care for. I don't care to watch them. Every time they on the screen, they're doing something that irritates me. Everybody else is cool. But that's pretty much what he was saying. And he said he's gonna address how he feels about Chef D to Chef D when they get to the house. So Jonathan is in the other bus saying that if Anthony gets to the house, it's going down. Chef and Lou are sitting back there dick eating Jonathan the whole time. And that's just really what they was doing last week. And they was doing it again. Just like you can tell they trying to do everything to get Jonathan's approval, trying to be his lap dog, trying to be his best friend on the show because they know Jonathan got some type of clout. And it's like, they're scared of Jonathan too. That's the whole thing that I was gathering. Like you can tell they are the two on the show that are the most scared of him and want to be in his good graces. You got people like Raz B, Orlando, Mo City. They don't care. Banga, they don't care. Like they're not trying to be up in here up somebody's ass the whole time. That's what Chef D and Lou are doing. But we ended up getting past that. Chef was then saying that Anthony was jealous of the attention that Chef D apparently gets from fans and whatever. That's what he's saying his issue stemmed from, or at least Anthony's issue with Chef D stemmed from, but we'll see later on. So the next thing they get to the house, and this is the part that irritated me because it's like, you know how Zeus is when they get to the houses, they got to show every single person get their own individual room, which was stupid. And then they show them hero shots of like the whole house, like you see every bit of it. It's a nice house though, I ain't gonna lie to you. It's a nice house. They had a basketball court in the back. They had a little mini putt-putt thing in the back. And then they had a golf course, like a whole golf course in the back. So they get there, they go up there and do what they normally do. Jonathan, of course, immediately runs up the stairs because if you watched last season, that's what started all his mess that got him sent home, him not being able to find his own room because he came there late. So he went upstairs, got a nice room. We're going to slide through this. Like, Rose is talking about laying down rules. Nobody go in anybody's room. He's saying keep the house clean. And if you got to fight, go outside and fight. Don't tear up the house. I agree with that. So they ended up all going up there to find their own rooms. Like I said, Carry-On got bunk beds. He was not tripping about it. Like he took it like a G and said, like, this is what it is in this moment. Make do with it. Cause like, y'all signed up for a show. Granted, you shouldn't be in bunk beds, but if that's where you at, that's where you at. You signed up to be there, so you deal with it. And that's what he said he gonna do. But Raz B was like, when we get to the next city, you get your own bed, whatever. So like I said, Zeus is being lazy with the content, showing every single person going into their rooms. But the one that's notable is Banga, Chef D, and Rails are in, I think it was Rails' room. And Banga then checks Chef D about how he thought what he did was whack, and saying that Jonathan was already getting him, which he was. And it's like, so why would you jump in, especially when he's bigger than him too? Chef D was saying that, like he was saying in the confessionals too, saying like, what did he say in the confessional? He said, saying like, why are you jumping in Anthony's beef when you don't even know what's going on with the fight? And it's like, that's not even what his point was. His point was, why were you jumping in on a fight when you claim you already had beef with him? Why did you wait for Jonathan to then jump for you to jump? And that's what Chef D said too. He said he didn't even see what was going on, but he saw security. So then he decided to run up, which is some punk shit. Like you see security, which I know was some BS. Like you saw Jonathan go over there and do it. And that's why security was running over there. So you decided to go over there and take advantage of Anthony already getting beat up, not knowing what's going on. If you're getting beat up, you can't see anything. And then there's security all over you. And then here comes another big dude trying to get his licks off on you. And that's basically what Banger was saying, and kind of like saying it was whack. Like if you really wanted to fight him, you can get your own win. And why do it whenever you already know he done got beat up? Like why do it now when he just got beat up? Wait later and get the dude a chance. Granted, you can fight whoever you want to fight whenever you want to fight them. But me, I stand on, if it's a one-on-one situation, it needs to be a one-on-one situation. Don't jump in on no fights. That's whack. But we get past that. He was still standing on it or whatever. Chef D was still standing on jumping on Anthony. But yeah, that's pretty much what was going on there. He then starts still looking for a room. He's too busy jumping around and going to other people's rooms that he's the only one that does not have a room yet. So they ended up in Banger's room, and his room is really, really small, which I guess is fitting for him because he's the smallest one out of all of them. Chef D is in there apparently trying to take his bed, and Banger gets loud and gets irritated saying he's not giving up the room. And they go back and forth for a little bit, but then he ends up leaving. Chef D ends up finding his room, and it has 2 twin beds that he eventually ended up pushing together to make a full-size bed. So the next scene, We got Raz B and Orlando out. They pretty much walked to Prince's room and saw that he got a couch in there. His room was pretty nice. A bunch of pointless conversations I'm not even gonna talk about. Like it's literally a bunch of pointless conversations. But Lou then we get to the next scene. Lou then comes into Jonathan's room, another pointless scene. Lou was talking about how he styled Jonathan or whatever. Darrell comes in, they start play wrestling, just pointless stuff. Like this stuff they could not, like you didn't have to put this on here, but maybe it's because they just did not have any content, which is why they're stretching these scenes out. Like this whole episode should have been maybe 15 minutes max, truth be told. But they started doing that whenever they finished play wrestling. Darrell then brings up how Anthony and Jonathan need to talk out their issues and whatever. Jonathan said that there was nothing to talk about. And that's basically the type of energy he was on the rest of the episode. The next thing we get, another like pointless scene, Mo City and Prince, they go outside looking for the gym and end up finding the basketball court. Orlando and Raspy end up joining them. They're pretty much sitting out there shooting it, talking about like where Anthony is. These four are probably the four that are going to be like chill the whole time, at least from my perspective. These are the ones that don't seem to be fiending for the camera and fiending to make a moment on the show. So they basically asking where Anthony is. Orlando's hoping that they can put the bullshit aside to just kind of get the money and whatever. Prince is saying in his confessionals that he's tired of talking about Anthony. He said that like he ain't got no issue with him, but he just does not care. And I feel him on that. Like, who cares? But the next thing, they all ended up migrating in the kitchen. Another pointless scene. Dee was asking why Anthony's not in the house if he's filming the show and he's on the cast or whatever. Carry On said it's probably because he's mad at you or whatever. And then Chef Dee sitting there acting dumbfounded, like, why would he be mad at me? Why would he not be mad at you? You just jumped him. So, and then Lou was sitting there saying too that Anthony ain't nobody that he would vibe with in real life. And it's like, how do you know that? You barely even know the dude. Like you literally was there around him for maybe 2 hours max. So how do you really know? You just hearing hearsay from Jonathan and Chef Dee, mainly Jonathan, and you too busy trying to beat up Jonathan's behind. So of course you're gonna say that. But that's where he was coming from. And that's the thing too. Lou, Chef Dee, I'm not a fan of either one of them. That's just where I'm at with that. But the banger then explains to Jonathan the same thing that he was saying to Chef Dee about the whole jumping thing was whack. Jonathan was already, because Jonathan was already getting him or whatever, and Jonathan was saying that Anthony's fake. He's probably been talking about you, yada, yada, yada. Just kind of like, I guess in a way, standing on Chef Dee doing what he did, which was disappointing, but it is what it is. Jonathan, like I said, Jonathan didn't jump. Jonathan ran up. He did not have to sneak him because you could have handled him on some heads up type deal. Like if you gave him the chance to square up, you still would have beat him. I believe that. So the sneaking stuff, I don't like that either. But that's really where that came from. Rails is in another room, ends up FaceTiming Anthony. Anthony says that he's coming to address all the stuff that happened because he's not gonna go out like a bitch. So the next scene, they ended up migrating outside, setting up moves for the night, whatever. And they want to go to the strip club. Rails was stating that they need to do a toast or whatever. They then start freestyling, vibing, Banger starts dancing or whatever. And then they go inside the house because the scene has wrapped. And that's basically what the end of that gave. Like it literally felt like they was like, okay, we got what we needed. Y'all can go back inside. And then they all split up. And that's basically what it was. But the last scene, Anthony finally arrives. Carry On and Rails go down to talk to him or whatever. His hand is wrapped up. He said that he didn't even realize in the moment that his hand was hurt because like all that adrenaline stuff and fighting, he didn't even feel it. But he said that he had blacked out when he was getting jumped or whatever. Carry On was asking if he was staying in the house. Anthony was saying, yeah, he's gonna stay. Like he's not leaving. Like he ain't gonna let somebody like punk him out the house, which I respect. Anthony was then talking about how the whole beef with Jonathan even happened. And he was saying like Rio had hit him up for his birthday or whatever because Anthony does like clubs and stuff and promoting and stuff like that out there. So he wanted to come to Houston. And he was like, yeah, like you gonna pay me to come host your club or whatever. Yeah, you gonna give me some money. So why would I not say yes? And I don't disagree with him at all. And that's basically what he was saying too. And he was like, he didn't have any beef with him. So what's the point in denying it? And yeah, he knows that Jonathan felt some type of way about it, but he was like, he felt like Jonathan felt like Anthony went out of his way to book Rio just to be messy. Granted, if it's true or not, who cares? But money is money. Like, if you're gonna give me some money, whatever. Like, you shouldn't let beef that don't even have nothing to do with you stop you from getting your money. So I agree with Anthony on that. And then he started talking about how Chef D be talking shit about Natalie every single day when Natalie is supposedly his best friend. And he said that's when he knew that he couldn't trust him. Who knows if that's true or not, but I can believe it. But they all ended up finishing that conversation. They all ended up getting everybody together in the game room where there's this big pool table in the middle, and they start toasting or whatever, getting their shots. So they gather around the table. Rails is then saying like they're not going outside, going to the clubs or whatever until they resolve the in-house drama. So then that gives the floor to Anthony and Jonathan. Anthony then says kind of like he understands where Jonathan's coming from as to why he would feel upset, but the energy that he was giving was pissing him off and hurting him because they was friends, and he felt like all this energy was not needed for that one little situation. And I agree. Like I don't see. I mean, I can see where Jonathan's coming from, but I don't agree with it. Like I don't feel like it was that big of a deal. But to each his own, and that's basically what Jonathan was saying. Like he still felt like it was an issue. That's why he felt the way he felt. He said he shouldn't have jeopardized their friendship, aka Anthony shouldn't have jeopardized their friendship for $300. If that is what he got, then it is what it is. Money is money. Like it is what it is. But they start going back and forth about it. You can tell Anthony was trying to not. You can tell Anthony tries to. He wants to be friends with Jonathan, at least at this point. At this point and in this moment. But Chef D gets in his confessionals talking about how it's painful to watch Anthony dick eat Jonathan. And I'm like, the irony of you saying that. It's been painful watching you these 2 episodes do exactly what you just said Anthony was doing. Let me know what y'all think about them. Let me know who is y'all's favorites. Let me know in the comments. And the people that you don't like, let me know in the comments. But long story short, when he got done saying that, Anthony then checked Chef D saying that he don't fuck with him in real life. He said that the shit that he did was pussy and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Chef D then starts saying, I guess I don't remember how they got to the point of talking about it, but Anthony said that Chef D ended up living with him at some point. Chef D then starts talking about how Anthony was talking shit online. Anthony was saying you did the same thing. They just go back and forth the whole time. And he's saying, like, why did you jump in on that fight when you could have got your one-on-one? Agree. Like, literally agree. And then Chef D ends up getting to the point where he's like, well, we can have our one-on-one now. So they ended up moving around, and they just literally right across from each other. And they didn't pop it in that moment. They were still popping it this way. But eventually, Chef D then charges at Anthony and throws his arms up in the air. That's what I'm going to call that, because he did not swing on him. You had every opportunity to swing on him, and he did not do that. Like, he threw his arms at him, threw his weight on him, and Anthony started slapboxing. Both of them can't fight, if you're asking me, because if you like, what is the point? Like, the other 2 fights, excluding Chef D, they was throwing, at least hands was being thrown. This one, no. But that was the end. And next week we got Banger and Lou getting into it. And Lou slapped the shit out of Banger. I'm not gonna lie to you. He slapped him to the point where he like fell back. But I'm rooting for Banger in that fight. So hopefully Banger bounces back and gets his one with Lou. Anthony's friend ends up coming to the house, and Jonathan gets to him. And then Banger and Raz B are like, I ain't gonna say they're getting into it, but they have a little confrontation. And that was all that was notable in that moment. So like I said, the episode was pretty mid. I ain't gonna say it was mid, it was below mid. But let me know what y'all think. Drop the comments down below. Subscribe if you have not already. Thumbs up the video. I know I was talking fast, stumbling over my words, but I was trying to get this out the way because it's boring. And hopefully next week is better. I will see y'all next week. Peace.